Welcome to episode number 74 of the Roundtable. I'm Grant Brisbee. Here at the end of McCullough and Marc Carig. Marc, what's going on today? You seem to have the ass.
I want to apologize to you, Grant, because right before we went on the air, I yelled at you and said, you write too effing long. And while I stand by that position, I probably shouldn't have yelled it out loud to you like that. So I'm sorry. I have the red ass a little bit.
I can take it. I'm wordy. I'm a wordy man. Andy, how you doing?
Marc is a leader of men, much like, Woody Hayes and Bobby Knight were leaders of men.
He just threw an audio chair across the podcast.
Yeah, he just punched some guy on the sideline.
Oh,
just for that, I'm going NPR voice for the rest of this podcast.
Marc, I believe you have something you want to say about the Oakland Athletics.
Sweaty balls. Oh, no.
No, man. We don't need that. No one needs that. No one needs that. What the A's are moving to Vegas, I read. Is that right?
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So Evan Drellick actually had a good story we posted late last night that sets up the owners' meetings that are going on right now in Arlington. And the owners are going to approve the move, despite the fact that they've all been furnished with a report that points out all of the shortcomings and issues that they're going to face in Las Vegas, namely that it's going to be a big tourist play to get people in this ballpark, and that's a little bit tricky. And it's the smallest media market in baseball, right? Which is, when you stop to think about that, that's a huge deal. This is a team that is not going to have the resources potentially that the Milwaukee Brewers have. Okay. And when we talk about the Brewers, it's always in the context of, geez, they do pretty well for a team that spends no money. So that baseball would be fine with that, I think, is indicative of what they truly think of Oakland, which I think this whole process has been that. I think, I was thinking about this last night as I was reading that story from Evan, and he did a really nice job with it. It's almost like this whole process has been just saying the quiet part out loud, that the industry's never valued being in Oakland. Like they couldn't wait to get out of there. Even when things were relatively okay, it was always 1 foot out the door. And Andy, you know this from covering teams. Like, did the teams ever stay in Oakland? No.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it was always San Francisco. And do the players live in Oakland? No. They lived in the suburbs or in San Francisco. So I think this has always been kind of the undercurrent within the industry. And what the owners are doing here is just saying the quiet part out loud. So is it shocking? It's not. I do find it interesting, though, that this vote will get a lot of attention. Man. Brian.
Producer Brian put a Chiron up that said, read this in Marc's book.
Oh,
I'm waiting for it.
It's hurtful.
That is hurtful, man. You're kicking me while I'm down, bro. No, but I think it is just tells you about what baseball thinks of where Oakland is right now in this process. And it turns out the biggest detriment potentially that this move faces isn't the owner's approval, which Evan reports is pretty much assured. But it's the school teachers of the state of Nevada and their attempts to basically take the public funding away from this project, which would, essentially kill it. So anyway, it's an interesting development. A lot of talk about this big vote, but really it's about can the school teachers of the state of Nevada kind of, get their way and short circuit the public funding.
Would it be pro labor if that happened?
So Evan says that.
I'm just trying to figure out what I want to.
Yeah, well,
it's complicated.
There are labor unions apparently that are against the teachers' efforts to do this.
Wow.
So, yeah. It is complicated.
Like blindly being pro labor is not.
Okay. No. Pro labor podcast.
No. We are the only pro labor podcast.
This is it.
To your point about would the A's have the resources without the TV money, without all that, if they could be the Brewers? What if, because John Fisher is worth billions of dollars, what if he made up the difference and spent, right? Could he do that?
What is this, a capitalist society?
Oh man, it's like you see it with the earthquakes. Like he doesn't spend on the earthquakes, and that's a MLS team it's got a big market. And no, he's content to just let it ride. The tourists, I mean, they just F1 is having a race in Vegas. And F1 they said, oops, we overestimated fan demand for one race in Vegas. They're not getting the demand they thought they're going to get. 81 games in the middle of summer in Las Vegas. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's so obviously bad.
So I mean, I'm past the point of thinking that this is going to change, but I do find it concerning that you're going to have a franchise that basically just gets lost in all of this. I mean, how are they going to be competitive if, even within this report, they're wondering, like, can they support a competitive payroll, right? And like, I don't see it. Like, I just don't see it. And even if they had success on the field, like you should see a baseball team that's playing well, let's say years from now, and there's 15,000 people in the ballpark tops, on a summer weekend, and it's because the city's kind of transient. There's a lot of like options for entertainment there. Summertime in Vegas, not great, right? And like this is not, the Raiders are having some success with this, but the NFL is just a totally different animal, right? You fly in for a weekend, you watch the game, you're out. I mean, so the Raiders going there made a lot of sense from that standpoint. And the Raiders also are like a national brand, right?
Yeah,
like,
huge difference.
Huge difference. You got a regional sport, and they want to put a team in a region that really doesn't seem to care all that much, or like there isn't much reason to think that they will. It's really terrible, actually. So I mean, that's just besides them leaving Oakland, which I think sucks. But I just wonder, like, what is really the future of this franchise? If this is when basically what I took from the story that Evan wrote was that this is the best of bad options.
Yeah, it struck me. I mean, I did a decent amount of reporting about Vegas expansion wise a couple last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't remember.
It was last year.
And the sort of argument from basically the folks in Las Vegas was like, yeah, you should come here. It's Vegas, man. We rule. There wasn't like we need baseball in Vegas, or like this town is clamoring for, we want to support Shea Langoliers, like whatever. It was more just like, we're Vegas. We'll take what you got. Like we can, we can do this. We got the Sphere. We got, the World Series of Poker. Like we got it all. We're Vegas, man. But it's still based on just this idea that it's like, there's going to be a lot of tourism. There's always going to be, getting lost is a good way of putting it. It's, that it's like the Phoenix Coyotes or something, right?
Right.
Ghost ship of a franchise, right?
That's a great comp.
Like it runs that risk, because you're talking about a team that, after years and years of the baseball operations department being pretty well run, has like obviously, like hit a snag there, right? Because the team is atrocious. There's reason to believe that their spending habits are not going to change too much. And then you're asking a town of people who are, as you said, like it's not a ton of natives living there to support it. Like, getting lost is a good way of putting it.
I think the thing that troubles me the most about the owner saying, it sucks, it's not a great option, but it's better than Oakland, is the lack of vision that has. Because Oakland could be viable. Oakland could be more than viable. I grew up with a Giants team. It's like, baseball's is never going to work in San Francisco. Baseball's never going to work in San Francisco. In the 70s, they had to take a loan out from the National League just to stay afloat. They were going to move to Toronto. They were 1 foot in Tampa. And they played in a garbage ballpark that couldn't draw. It was too cold. It's too cold for baseball. There was no vision until there was. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, we're just so used to the Giants. Oh, they're an institution. They play in a great ballpark. Everyone comes to see them.
Right.
Oh, no, they only drew like 27,000 fans per game this year. What's wrong with the Giants? Like, that's where the dialogue is now. Have some freaking vision. The East Bay is rich. It's clamoring for a team. They're basic AAA soccer team. It's selling out games. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's super frustrating, like on multiple levels. I mean, we're not talking about the Phoenix Coyotes here. And I like that comp because it's just like, yeah, they're just sort of this like nothing franchise that's poorly run and it's had its issues or whatever.
Is there
Dude,
still a Phoenix Coyotes?
yeah,
No,
it's Arizona
they're
now.
the
Right?
Arizona Coyotes, but they play in like a college arena.
Yeah.
Yes, you.
Like
Yeah.
4,000 people
Yeah.
like capacity.
Sorry,
And
go on.
so, but that's what the A's run the risk of becoming, and it is just such a shame. This is a charter American League franchise with
Yeah.
an extremely rich history that, by the way, they have spent more years in Oakland than they have in Philadelphia. I mean, this is where the franchise belongs. It is so obvious. So, I get, the economic arguments, even if there was some miracle here, you're still talking years until there's an actual ballpark built there. And that's if you
Right.
started today, right? So, I mean, it's a really unfortunate situation that all these years have passed and this issue's only gotten worse. But I just come back to the fact that, like, it doesn't seem like they belong in Las Vegas. It just doesn't. And they know it. The owners know it. They've studied the issue, and that's what came back. So it's I don't know. Phoenix, I'm never gonna get that out of my mind because it's so spot on. They're just enough. They go from this historic team, which, by the way, sneaky big fan base outside of Oakland. Okay, there's a lot of people that like love baseball that like love the A's, like and I think to abandon that is just like crazy to me.
Yeah, it's like if you were theoretically like marketing a book about the A's, right? It wouldn't just be for the Bay Area audience, right? Like you could maybe do like a book tour across the country.
Tony Schiavone got a pop off the A's this week. Did you see this?
Really? No,
Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah.
At AEW thing, he gets up on the stage and he starts talking about his favorite baseball team of all time and starts naming off those like early 70s Oakland A's.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's just like, they belong in Oakland and something like F you Las Vegas.
Wow.
But my point, and and look, I'm biased. Okay, my brother, right, who is just like devastated by all of this,
Yeah.
is just basically flooding my phone with these examples of like, look, they're everywhere. No one talks about it, but they are. He was just in Australia and New Zealand on a trip. And he was like, every time he saw an A's hat somewhere, he said it. Every time there's someone like you wouldn't think would care about this, showing that they do care about this, he sends it. And I think it is interesting that way. I think that's a reflection of is this idea of tradition and history in this sport. There's so much of it with this franchise, and jettisoning them off to Las Vegas, and then maybe changing the name and colors even, right? Like, oh my God, they become the Phoenix, Arizona, whatevers.
Yeah.
Right. In hockey, it's just like 5,000 people who barely care, right? And for what? Because it's slightly less economically bad. It's not even, you can't even say, oh, this is a good move. It's just slightly less bad.
Yeah.
And it's the reverse of what the Padres have done when they looked around and they saw the Chargers were out and they're up in LA and they had the market to themselves. It's a little bit different in Oakland because you got San Francisco on the other side. But Oakland, they've lost the Warriors to San Francisco. They've lost the Raiders to Vegas. There is an opportunity to look around and go, we can define East Bay fandom, and East Bay fans are nutty. They're a little bit off. And you saw that at the A's games where they were 5,000, 10,000, but it sounded like 30,000. You have the opportunity to be the East Bay. And there's no vision. It's just, Vegas, if they give us a stadium, wow, it's going to work out for me. John Fisher, it's going to work out for me, and Dave Cavall. And that's the vision.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It's a huge bummer. It actually makes me sad to talk about it. Because as much as I want to be like, oh, I don't give a damn. This is just work.
Yeah.
That's a lie. It's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk to A's fans all the time. And they're just sad. They're just sad, and angry and sad. And you just, hey, oh, you're a baseball fan. What's your team? A's. You know what I mean? It's just it sucks. It sucks.
Like, I thought about that recently, Grant. Like, all of us are here doing this right now. And by the way, how cool is it? And ridiculous, by the way. We're literally on the clock to do this, to sit here and talk about baseball. It's like remarkable, actually. I think about it now and again. It's just like, holy crap. Like, how did that happen? right? So like, yeah, it's work, and sometimes there are difficult things at work and all that, just like any other job. But it's not like any other job. This is pretty freaking great. Okay. The only reason I'm sitting here is because of that baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And it pains me, right? When you right there, hey, what's your team? I don't have an answer anymore. And like, that's really odd to me. And like, I don't know. Like, I kind of hope that I can take my kids to that crappy ass stadium just once, because they should experience it even just once. All right. Like what it's like, to be in there and, for one of those games, like on the weekend, or the Giants are in or whatever, and it's the Bay Bridge series, and like everyone in the Bay Area is just there hanging out. It is so much fun, and it is some of the best memories of my life. And it pains me that, like, yeah, Robbie's not going to know what that is. Rosie's not going to know what that is. It sucks.
I go the other way, where my favorite is like a Tuesday night Royals game. And just you're going there, and it's cold. You think of San Francisco as being the cold place. It gets cold in Oakland. It gets
Sure
cold in the
does.
Coliseum. And you're there, and it's cold, and you've got just two bad teams duking it out. But you've got a bowl of people who care, and they're loud, and it's fun. And once you look out, it's grass, and there's white lines going this way and that way, and it's baseball. I love that experience. The bathrooms aren't crowded either.
That helps. So yeah. Man, I'm sorry. I know that the people are just like listening to this going, this shit again. But it's like, yeah, this sucks. And teams don't move very often. So when it does happen, it's sort of like jarring, right? And it shouldn't be. We're all grown-ups. Like, we know why it happens, and that's the reality of professional sports. I get all of that. But part of like being involved and enjoying it and watching this and kind of observing it for a living is also understanding that, yeah, there's another element to this that defies logic. All right. And this is like, I don't have a baseball team anymore here soon. And that is just crazy to me.
The idea that a team that there can be an area with a new team, and that team isn't ready to go bananas financially from the jump, is wild to me. Because even when you had the Diamondbacks as a new team, they were conniving with Scott Boras to get Travis Lee, or the Rays were taking the Giants draft pick Matt White, and like they're trying to spend. And then you had the Rays when they had the Bombers, where they had Fred McGriff and Jose Canseco and Luis Castillo. And there's always that moment when Wayne Huizenga is going to spend for the 1997 Marlins. You have at least the promise that they're going to invest in the team. And this one, it's sort of just like dead on arrival. Like, no, they're probably just going to be the A's,
Yeah, no, we're just,
come out and see them.
bad. Yeah. It's here. We're Vegas. Come here.
What a pitch.
I'm just enjoying your guys' fond childhood memories of baseball, and thinking sometimes when I talk to people, like they're like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "Oh, I write about sports." Like, "Oh, like what do you write about?" I was like, "Mostly write about baseball." Like, "Oh, were you a big baseball fan growing up?" It's like, "No, I never." They were like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, I didn't watch baseball." And they're like, "So why do you do it?" And I'm like, "Are you familiar with capitalism? And you need money for goods and services?" No, we're very lucky to have these jobs. It's just. It's it's a good reminder that people dreamed of doing this growing up, and then there was me. Hey, the off season is coming up. How about that? We actually technically we're in the off season. Right?
How about that? I'm sorry.
Dude, it's the worst.
Are we just gonna move on after that?
Yeah, dude, it sucks. There's no baseball to watch, man. There's no baseball. Every night I go to my TV and I'm like, I wish I could watch a ball.
I'm so hung up on, there's some people who dreamed about having this job, and then there was me.
I love my job. My job's great. I really enjoy it. It's just
so
not
great.
what I
it'd be like
for myself when I was
if younger. I could sing like Celine Dion or something, and I'm releasing all these albums of well-produced pop, and I'm just listening to it and going, yeah, not for me. Not for me. This is not guided by voices, which is what my passion really is. So what really would be your passion, Andy McCullough?
Well, I'd like to be a professional poker player. I'm just not good enough.
I was gonna say, like, are you good?
Yeah, no, it's just a like in the same way that like you guys couldn't play in the NBA. Like I'm not good enough to do it. I'm not good enough to do it.
Are you gonna play poker in the winter meetings?
No, there's no casinos in Nashville.
With like other writers, you goof.
No, you get it. No.
What is it with you in gambling?
Grant loves gambling.
Well, yeah.
Grant just wants in on. He's like, I'll buy a piece. I don't care.
In the pot, what you got?
All right. Grant's one of those guys where they're measuring a first down in a football game, and Grant's like, I'll take either side. Which one do you want?
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds great. That sounds great. But I mean, I do like gambling to some extent, but I only love gambling on baseball. All right. So we're talking about.
We were talking about like the free agencies coming up, like the pressure index, right? Like who
Giants.
We know who all the players are. We know who all the, but like who has to do some stuff?
Giants.
This postseason.
Cardinals.
Go.
Yeah. No, I just think if there's nothing more than a Mitch Haniger, Michael Conforto 1-2 punch for Giants fans this year, and I'm talking metaphorically speaking, there will be very, 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 very angry Giants fans. They have finished second for Bryce Harper. They were finished second for Giancarlo Stanton. They finished in the final six for Ohtani. They had Carlos Correa for a few minutes, and then they didn't. No, they had Arson Judge for a few minutes, and then they didn't. They had Carlos Correa for a week. It's time. It is, it's time for them to get their Barry Bonds or Barry Zito, I guess. One of the Barrys.
I mean, only one of those types of players is available.
Yeah,
this
right.
winter, Grant.
Right. So I think people are fairly realistic about Ohtani. It's really going to be up to him, and everyone's going to want him. But they need to do something that resembles anything.
Can I ask a question about that? Sure. I agree with you, by the way. I think, man, the Giants on like a boring scale, 1 to 10, are about a 2 right now. Okay, like, they are boring. But you just said it. This idea that Giants fans are entitled to that, where does that come from? Is that when they went and got Bonds after they almost went to Tampa?
I think a lot of it has to do with finishing. They're always in the hunt. They're always right there, and then. Yeah, it's even with like John Lester, they were the second team for John Lester.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't get their man, and they're always like, well, we tried. And if you talk to people, they were really serious about Bryce Harper. They were in until the end. They were not just a stalking horse. They had a chance, but they finished second. They always are finishing second, and it's built these expectations, and it's just cumulative. And now it's put up or shut up because Farhan Zaidi. He's rumored to have an extension coming down, that it's just a formality that he hasn't had it yet, but maybe there is some show me to this offseason.
Well, there definitely has to be both an internal, external pressure to acquire the sort of player that you could hang a poster of outside the stadium and people would say, oh, I know that guy. He plays for the Giants, right? Because right now they really just don't, they've got Logan Webb and...
Right. And Webb, you're only seeing every fifth day.
Right. And you only see him, every fifth day or in Martin Scorsese movies and as his alter ego, Jesse Plemons. But like, yeah, it's so they need that sort of player. The question is like, you get into the famous Andrew Friedman quote, right? Like if you're rational about every free agent, you will finish third on every free agent. Mm-hmm. They're a rational organization, and that has benefited them to an extent. During this time, they're not exuberant expenders. They don't engage in irrational exuberance. That's what I'm saying when it comes to spending. They kind of got to go. They were willing to do it on Correa, and then as Grant famously said, he had termites in his ankle. They would have paid for Aaron Judge, but Judge pretty clearly wanted to go back to the Yankees. And now, so it's like, okay, who is that player? Is Yamamoto enough? Is Matt Chapman enough? Is Blake Snell enough? You'd never want to be at the top of the pressure index because you got to do something. And everyone knows that doing something can often backfire in a way that doing nothing less often backfires.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tricky spot. I mean, Yamamoto would move some needles. I think he's very, very, very good at pitching. Ohtani would be the dream,
Of
but
course, yeah.
who knows? I do think that they will not be. I think they'll be stupid with Ohtani. And what I mean by that is they will not be rational when it comes to Ohtani. They're going to assume that he is going to be there for as much marketing purposes as baseball purposes, not just a straight war to dollar ratio, but it's just hey, we are the team of Ohtani. But it's, who knows who's actually going to get Ohtani.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ohtani's just, it's more like, look, do you think you kind of just got to get lucky if you pick Shu.
Yeah,
it seems like
exactly.
That seems to be the consensus in the industry of just like, I hope, I don't know, maybe we don't know what he wants. Hopefully he'll choose us.
Yeah, maybe he just like sits around watching Fox News all day and he's like, San Francisco, are you kidding me? San Francisco.
Or maybe he sits around watching
crumbling.
Fox News and is like, they need a hero.
They
need someone to save them from the woke mind virus or whatever, is being cited as the cause. He's like, I will do it. But you never know.
Spit take from Mark.
Oh my God, that was a legitimate. Oh my God, I don't know how I don't have soda in my nose right now. Oh man, that was good.
Mark, you suggested the Cardinals are at the top of that list.
Yeah, just what? I didn't realize this, but Katie Boo's been writing this. Like they haven't had this many losses in the season since 1990.
Yeah.
Like I mean, holy crap!
They're
like
a really bad ball club.
Oh man, but like it just tells you the standard that those folks expect, and those fans are obviously passionate. They're rabid. It's a great baseball town, and those folks expect a certain thing from their club, and they didn't get it this year. So I feel like, hey, it's time, and with them, I think it's interesting because the need is so clear.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like get one of these freaking pitchers.
Yeah.
All right. You better get one because if you don't, then what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
What's that?
Get 2, get 3.
Yeah. That's why I say them, because it's not like, it is just, this is what they need. Here you go. And by the way, there's a crap ton of pitchers out there who are pretty darn good.
Yep.
So like, to me, it's like, if you miss out on one of the upper echelon guys there and you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, boy, like that is a tough pill to swallow. Like, and even if you go down a couple tiers and buy in bulk, that still ain't enough.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to get one of those guys, capital G. Okay. You got to get one of them.
It's even more acute because last offseason, a year ago at this time, we could have been sitting around, and we probably were right here sitting around going, what the Cardinals need is some starting pitching. I think the Cardinals should go out and spend some money on some starting pitching. And the fans were, I think my team, the Cardinals, they need starting pitching. And throughout the offseason, they just didn't get that starting pitching. And everyone's like, if you could do it over again, maybe get some starting pitching. And then to see Jordan Montgomery become like a cult hero in Texas, winning a World Series, boy, that the whole thing just played out to make Cardinals fans very bitter about the state of their organization. And they should be. They should be. It was so freaking obvious.
Well, they also, like, the acquisition of Jordan Montgomery was good for them. Yeah. Right. Like Jordan Montgomery did everything he was expected to do. The problem was like, Jack Flaherty was not particularly good. Miles McCullough was not particularly good. Adam Wainwright had legitimately one of the worst seasons from a starting pitcher has had in the last 25 years when given that amount of innings. And so that's that, and Flaherty's gone. Wainwright is retired. They need to both shoot for the top of the market and buy in bulk.
Yeah.
Which is not a position they've ever really felt they've ever really been in. Right. And if you look at that roster, if they get a couple arms, you could very easily be like, oh, wow, the Cardinals are going to probably win the division again, huh?
Exactly.
And so it's just a matter of, it's interesting when teams get put into a spot where they have to do things that they normally don't do. And the Cardinals had so much success for so long doing things their way, like acquiring stars, often through trade and then extension rather than
the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, just sort of raiding the Colorado Rockies of talent. doing that rather than, having to compete at the top of the market for free agents. They developed a lot of pitchers, or they got them through, like sort of less expensive means. And now they're in a position where like the pipeline is kind of stoppered up, and you got to really think like, how do we convince Blake Snell to enjoy toasted ravioli, or like, do we think like, hey, Aaron Nola had like not a great year last year, by the way. Should we give him $150 million? These are there's a reason teams avoid these questions.
Yep.
Right. Because you don't want to sign Carlos Rodon or whatever. You don't want to have the outcomes that the Yankees have had with Carlos Rodon is probably a more fair way to put it.
I mean, you could name probably 10 pitchers in the last 15 years with the Yankees. But anyway.
What I'm saying is like, look, you don't want to get into a situation where you're in year one of a deal and you're like, oh,
yeah,
God,
what the hell is happening?
What if we do that?
Yeah.
But that's the free agent market.
Yeah, that's how you end up getting outside firms to do audits on you. You sign Carlos Rodon and then stink up the joint all summer long.
It's a fascinating offseason for a team like the Cardinals looking for both top of the market and bulk because it's all there. And I'm almost a little sad that Farhan Zaidi is not going to get a chance to like survey the scene and go, we can fix him. Lucas Giolito, we're like, there are a lot of pitchers like that. I don't think the Cardinals can mess around with those pitchers though. It's got to be, you got to have a quantity of quality, and you have to have someone at the top to anchor that, and you have to have you can't just mess around with a Lucas Giolito and whoops, he's really bad now. You've got to get some cost certainty.
I also think even if you're the Giants, I don't know if you want to be in the knob fiddling business.
They fiddle knobs really well when it comes to starting pitching.
Sometimes, but also sometimes not.
Yeah. They do it better than most. Like Gossman, Rodon the first time, Alex Wood the first time, DeSclafani.
Right, but they're on the second time with Alex Wood. They didn't have great results with Manaea or Stripling last year.
Manaea was fine. Stripling, not so much.
I mean, look, the fiddling the knobs.
What I'm saying is you don't have to fiddle the knobs when you're like, you can just spend for the best.
Right.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, because the thing about fiddling the knobs, while it's fun and like there are certainly teams that have done it well and whatever, it's also still really hard.
Yeah.
Like it's so, and we're trying to talk about, if you think the outcomes for free agent pitching, right, are all over the place, go look at for real at the fiddling the knobs part. Because we talk about all the successes because it's easy to see those. But like there's a lot of knob fiddling that doesn't get reported because they turn out like shit. That's why, because it's hard. All right. These are human beings, and you're asking them to do one of the hardest things for human beings to do, which is change. And so to bring it back, like that's what the Cardinals face right now. I think, Andy, your point about they're having to do something they don't normally do, you guys, that is not easy. All right. Like even if the need is obvious or whatever, when you operate a certain way for so long, you get ingrained in those patterns. And even if you start to see that, hey, we might have to make an adjustment, easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, are they going to write a big giant check for Aaron Nola and hope he likes humidity? Like, I mean, are they? Like logically, you're like, yeah, you should do that. But like, you compare it to what they've historically done, I don't know. And like, what was the last, like, I'm trying to think, well, am I missing one? The last free agent that they went out for that no one saw them going out to do it got complicated, and Contreras. So anyway, like I think that is an underrated part of all of this. Like, yes, they've got to change the way they do things. Yes, they've said that publicly. They've talked about changing their pitching program. They've talked about how they're going to target guys is going to change, right? Like that. But dude, actually doing the change is where it gets tough. So I think you've got that along with this pressure because their fans do demand a certain product, which is awesome, by the way. Like, that's great. Like, being a Cardinal fan for all those years and like, you haven't had a year this bad since 1990. You're living pretty well. There's some championships spread in there. There's pennants spread in there. But yeah, I think for those reasons, the pressure on them is unique. Yeah. Right. Like, and it's like a very clear need that clarifies everything.
Would you think that if you sorted all the free agents by their Fangraphs WAR, would you say that 3 of the top 15 free agents would make them a competitor for the NL Central?
Well, who are those? Like,
let's see: Jordan Montgomery, Michael Wacha, and Jack Flaherty. What do you think? You think that would?
Stop.
move the needle.
Stop. Is that what you've you figured out in your in your scrolling?
Yeah, I just sorted by last year's WAR, and it's it's thinner than I thought, I guess, because
Can you repeat those again?
Jordan Montgomery, Michael Walker, and Jack Flaherty, all in the top 15 of WAR, baby. Let's go Birds. But it's a little bit thinner than
that's
I
some
thought.
top flight Googling to pull that out of your hiney in like 15
Fangraphs
seconds like that. That's pretty great.
I mean, Montgomery, if you brought back Montgomery as like your number 3 or number 4 starter, and you also played at the top of the market for one of those guys, maybe a Sonny Gray, okay. Maybe he's like a number 3. That's fine. Yeah. And then you added in bulk. You could see them as a contender, but what they need some sort of, certainty within their rotation. Yeah. So that makes, I don't know. I just look at all of these pitchers, all the top end pitchers. I sort of kind of wince in a way that like I don't wince when I look at Jordan Montgomery, because I kind of feel like, okay, that guy's like a number 3. That's fine. I like that.
I just like the idea of bringing the band back now. Throw
right.
Lance Lynn on top of that pile too while you're at it.
Oh my gosh, is Joe Kelly a free agent? Is his Dodgers deal ended? Maybe he can pitch the 8th inning.
Is Trevor Rosenthal trying to make a comeback at one point? Like just let's bring them all in here. He used to wear a Cardinal uniform. Well, do it again anyway.
Why not?
Andy, you said the Dodgers.
I do, yeah. Dodgers. Well, I think the Dodgers are interesting for a variety of reasons, because I think that there are people within their organization who feel like there are not needs for major changes. And I think there's good reason to believe in that. They won 100 games this year. They dominated the National League West. And you could kind of argue that they effectively repelled the Padres' assault on them over the past few years. The Padres kind of like threw everything at them.
Good point.
And, there's a chance they trade Juan Soto this year. There's a chance their payroll skims back. Like they, came at the Dodgers with everything they had and could not dislodge them from, the top of the division. So you can argue, right, that the Dodgers are in a pretty comfortable spot and kind of keep doing what you're doing. It's also very difficult to spend time around that team, especially where they were near the end of the year with their pitching, and not be like, this team needs to like sign some arms. Like they need to like actually go out and get a free agent starter and actually like compete at the top of that market again. And so it is the eternal question with the Dodgers, right? Like, do you keep doing what you're doing, knowing that it is very successful, knowing that while it has flaws, it tends to put you in this very enviable position? Or do you deviate from that slightly enough and risk some of the stability that you've sort of built to, get back to the World Series, which they haven't been to in several years? And, they have the openings in the rotation, right? Like, Clayton Kershaw is coming off, major shoulder surgery. There's a decent chance that he doesn't, pitch this year. And even if he does, what capacity will it be in? And there's also a chance he could sign with the Texas Rangers. So you just don't know about that, right? Julio Urias, unlikely to ever appear for the Dodgers again. You got Walker Buehler coming off surgery, Dustin May coming off surgery. Tony Gonsolin, I think he might be out for the year, given the time that he had his surgery. So like there's obvious, options. But you also know there's people within the Dodgers like, no, let's go with Bobby Miller. Let's go with, let's see what we got with Gavin Stone, like Ryan Pepio. Let's give him a runway and see what they do. And so I think it will be interesting to see how they combat this market outside of being like everyone else in the line of supplicants waiting to see if Shohei Ohtani will, bless them with his sort of presence.
So I not to push back necessarily, but like I'm interested in this because, like, obviously the Dodgers better than just about anybody. Haven't they earned the benefit of the doubt by now? And I say that in the context of we're talking about pressure index and all these things. Like, okay, and you said even at the start of that, Andy, right? Like the people within the organization that are like, hey, we're doing okay. Like this is no need for a major change. I mean, at some point, like, doesn't that take some of the pressure off that they've bought like some bet? You know what I'm saying? The
to an
benefit of the
extent-
doubt here,
to
because
an
like, they
extent,
did repel the Padres. And you're right. That's a
That's
great. I
what I'm
didn't thought
saying,
about
yeah.
that. That's a great point, right? The Padres through like bad chemistry and insolvency couldn't get it done. Okay, so like, but doesn't that buy some degree of, you know what? Let the Dodgers figure this out.
It does. I do think though that there is a pretty there's a lot of folks within the fan base who are clamoring for them to use their financial might more aggressively. I think that as time passes, a lot of fans will, out of frustration with the current product, feel less connection to the 2020 championship. And I think that given the circumstances of that championship in a 60-game season during a pandemic, there are probably some, folks who don't value it as much. I think it counts for just as much as all the other ones because we played that stupid season, so you better count it, I had to write gamers off my couch, so you better count that freaking championship.
Yeah, I covered the World Series off my couch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it mattered to me. Damn it, I had to work.
I cover every World Series off my couch.
Yeah, but you wrote 4 times as long as I did. But anyway.
Oh.
Sorry.
But like I think it goes in closer into the bucket of like the 1981 championship than the 1988 championship. And I think fans, are frustrated with the performance in the postseason. And I think there's a lot of Dodger fans, like I guess you could call them the casuals or whatever, but that's most people who watch sports who are sort of like, hey, they won the division again. All right, like let's see what's going on in the postseason. And then they show up in the postseason and get their, heads kicked in by the Diamondbacks, and there's kind of a frustration with it. So yes, I believe in like a vacuum. They have 100% earned the benefit of the doubt of like, look, if you guys want to run it back with, Miller, Pepio, Stone, what's the
Sheehan,
Michael Grove, Emmett Sheehan, and you want to like act like that's your rotation. Okay, yeah, go for it. You'll probably still win 97 games, but decisions aren't made in a vacuum. And I think they are facing more. There's a lot of pressure in LA, or a lot of there's going to be a lot of frustration, I think, among fans if they don't get Ohtani, which I think negates to understand that, like, I don't really know what the Dodgers can do. I don't know what anyone can do to sign Ohtani other than like hope he picks them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think that the calculus there is changing more so than it has in recent years. Definitely, it's the most pressure they faced since the championship by far.
I'm interested in that. Like, I guess I'm curious if that had been a straight up full season championship, right? How much is the pressure lessened? Is that, I guess, a significant driver to the pressure?
I don't think it's a significant part of it, but it's not insignificant. I've heard it more than I expected to hear.
Right. That's why I'm asking about it, because I'm really fascinated by that. Because like when I look at 2020, I don't know what to make of that. Even now, I really don't. Like you said, you should count it, and like I can see that argument. I can also see the other side of like it was 60 games. It was weird, right? Like so. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's the importance of it depends on who you ask, and the memories of it are kind of interesting, and there's more bitterness attached to that championship, I think, than in any other championship for obvious reasons, because of the way it was experienced, because some of the fallout, afterwards with the situation with Justin Turner and and so it just ended up being less of a cleanly experience than the organization had hoped. And so in the moment, there was a ton of relief and joy and exultation, all that stuff. But as time passes, it just is more complicated. And so it's not as simple as like, hey, look, they won a couple years ago. It's more like, when you mention that now internally and out of the organization, you hear kind of like, yeah, but it was 2020, which is not a thing that I expected to hear, to be honest.
Yeah.
Take it from a man who's actually written a book about the Dodgers, or Dodgers adjacent book. That's what you do when you have a lot of knowledge about something.
Yeah.
I asked about the story length thing. Grant, I take it back.
Yeah. At least I write.
That's not writing. That's typing.
George King.
All right,
Yeah.
we're going to be back in 2 weeks. So we're going to do a little every other week thing for a little bit. And then after that, we're going to be live 2 episodes during the winter meetings.
Oh, man.
Vegas, baby. I'm going to be gambling so much in Vegas.
Vegas.
Winter
Hey,
meetings
we
in
should,
Vegas, baby.
We should have the Cespedes barbecue kids on again and
that's fine.
and harangue Jake Mintz for costing us the clubhouse forever.
Yeah. A jerk off.
Oh man, it's sacred in there. It's sacred in there. Yeah, we gotta learn them up. No, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Do you think anyone's gonna sign in the next 2 weeks? Like any of the big names, they gonna pop?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know who.
Yeah.
I think like there's a lag right now because there's a lot of trades that have to happen today, Tuesday. So that's like kind of front of mind. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if before our next episode that someone is signed for 50 million or more.
Okay. Per a season, like Ohtani, 50 million a season.
Yeah, right. Yes.
All right. It's been episode 74 of the Roundtable. We'll back in 2 weeks. Talk about baseball because that's what we do. Thanks for listening.